Today, we're diving into a pretty remarkable story about a royal upbringing. But this isn't your typical fairy tale. Forget the palaces and privilege for a second. This is a story about a totally different kind of inheritance, one that shaped a future queen in ways you'd never expect. So let me ask you, when you hear royal childhood, what pops into your head? Seriously, picture it. Is it just a life of complete luxury, totally disconnected from any kind of everyday struggle? Because, yeah, that's what most of us would probably think. But here's the twist. The reality for a young Queen Sirikit of Thailand was so different. In her own words, she talked about a childhood of hand-me-downs, not luxury gowns, of catching public trams, not riding in private cars. It's a surprising story, so let's get into it. So, we're going to start with the Queen's own memories of her family life. And it was a life defined by, believe it or not, being frugal and humble, a world away from the halls of power you'd imagine. She actually remembered feeling kind of sad that she didn't have beautiful clothes like other girls. Instead, she was wearing clothes handed down from her two older brothers. She would watch her mother at the sewing machine, stitching up school uniforms for her and her sister. And her father, a man from a noble family, would be seen literally running to catch the public tram. She often had to walk a long way just to get to school. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. It's how her father taught them to think about all this hardship. He didn't see it as something to be ashamed of. Nope. He used it to teach them a really foundational lesson about who they were. Whenever she or her siblings complained, her father would gently repeat this idea. It became their family's moral compass. The lesson was crystal clear. Your financial status, it means nothing. Your integrity, well, that means absolutely everything. And he was determined to make sure they got it. And that brings us to maybe the most powerful story from her childhood. This was a lesson in empathy that happened right in the middle of World War II, when things were really tough for everyone. So the family had these rental properties they'd inherited. And with money being so tight, her father thought about raising the rent. But then the tenants came to him and they pleaded with him, explaining just how much they were struggling because of the war. So he made a choice. He went back to his family and announced his decision with this simple, incredible phrase: "Let them eat, we eat too." In one move, he put compassion way above profit, teaching his kids that taking care of others was just more important. Just one single principle. But it was a choice that would go on to define a whole lifetime of values. So even though they didn't have a lot of material things, the Queen always described her childhood as being incredibly rich in other ways. Her parents really worked hard to build a spirit of gratitude, patriotism, and tolerance in their home. Looking back, the Queen felt so much love and respect for her parents that she would often pray this. It's such a powerful wish, isn't it? This wasn't a childhood she hated. It was one she was deeply thankful for because of the values it gave her. Her parents had these little rituals to make sure those feelings took root. They'd set up small altars to honor the monarchy on special days, and they'd use flowers the kids had helped grow in their own garden. They were taught to be grateful for their country, their faith, and even for the house they lived in, which they were always reminded was a gift from the monarchy. Her father also taught them this core Buddhist idea of metta. Basically, it's the principle of sending out loving kindness and goodwill to absolutely everyone, no matter who they are or what they believe. And he didn't just talk about it, he showed them what it looked like in the real world. He would actually point out how right there in their city of Bangkok, you could see Buddhist temples, Islamic mosques, and Christian churches all standing together peacefully. He taught them that, yeah, Buddhism was the national religion of Thailand, but the king was the protector of all faiths, and that meant everyone deserved respect. It was a living, breathing lesson in tolerance. All right, so when we pull all these threads together, you start to see the bigger picture. The Queen's childhood, yeah, it was short on material things, but it gave her an inheritance of enormous and, well, priceless wealth. And this, right here, is the heart of the whole story. The hand-me-down clothes, the public trams, that decision about the rent, they weren't just about hardship. They were the building blocks of her true inheritance. Not money, not property, but a rock-solid set of values to guide her entire life. You can really break it down into these 4 pillars. First, integrity. Born from that lesson that poverty isn't shameful, but dishonesty is. Then, compassion. Forged in that moment, her father chose his tenets over profit. Gratitude, which was nurtured in a home that honored its country. And finally, tolerance. That metta she saw all around her in the city she grew up in. This whole unexpected story of a royal childhood kind of leaves us with a pretty deep question to think about, doesn't it? Beyond all the money and the status, what are the values we choose to build our own lives around? And what's the true inheritance we're going to leave behind for others?